Hi, I'm Mimi Chan. Welcome to Culture Chat. Thanks for joining the conversation. Hey everyone, it's the Mimi and Greg Show. These episodes have basically become an on-air recording of Greg Rucka and I discussing what we've been up to and how we're coping with the challenges of the week. We discuss my battle and activism with the rise of anti-Asian hate crimes and dealing with burnout from COVID-19 and watching the Chauvin trial. I was also excited to discuss Greg's recent writing projects and his thoughts about the what ifs for the Old Guard 2 movie. I also got a masterclass in developing a strong story plot and character motivation through our discussion of the John Wick series. This week marks the anniversary of Greg and I podcasting for 1 year. I am so grateful for the privilege and honor of being a part of these conversations. Thank you all for joining us on this amazing journey. For those that don't already know, Greg Rucka is a New York Times best-selling author of hundreds of comics and nearly 24 novels. He's also the writer for his hit film, The Old Guard, starring Charlize Theron. I'm loving these conversations and hope you are too. If you are, please rate my podcast on your platform of choice and share it with others. If you would like to support with a donation to help keep this podcast going, I would really appreciate it. You can become a patron of the show by visiting my website or patreon.com/sifumimichan. For comments or suggestions, email me at sifumimichan@gmail.com or reach out on social media at sifumimichan. Now on with the show. Hello, Greg.
Hello. How are you today?
I'm good. I have my mascot here.
Yes.
Greg, my little lamb.
The lighting is such that
Yeah.
your little lamb is
It's
its fleece is white as snow.
Yeah. It's the sun, the Florida sun.
There you go. No, that's good. It's nice to have a bright, cuddly pet.
It is. So this is from you.
Yes, it came in the gift basket.
Came in the basket. That's why it's called Greg, and it's here to keep me calm.
All right.
It's a calming presence in my life now.
Let us hope it works.
Well, it has been insane. I mean, it's been a couple weeks, but I feel like it's just been like a blink.
What's been going on?
Well, obviously, the world's like still upside down. I've been like nailed to the Chauvin trial, which I definitely want to talk to you about later. But obviously with all the anti-Asian hate crimes, I have become this huge activist. And so it's like every day there's something. And I literally just got off the phone with the sheriff's department, who is trying to collaborate with us on education and being able to come out and give presentations to the community to help them with like, here's what you do if something happens. I'm pushing for something more aggressive, like, you know, if you're being harassed or if someone's being harassed, like what can we do more of? And, you know, there's some like hoops we're jumping through right now. Like, well, we can't really give you specific advice because that's the liability issue. I'm like, no, I need to know that people will not sit there and watch somebody get kicked in the head and then close the door on them. I was like, this is not okay. Like, this is completely unacceptable. And so by no means do I want anybody to go, but like think they're Bruce Willis and Die Hard, you know, and have like delusions. But I just feel like there's something to be done. There's somewhere in the middle, and there's somewhere more than just closing the door on somebody who's getting completely attacked, or at least helping her after the fact. Like, I get that maybe you're like, I don't know, is he armed? Is he going to knife me? Or it's just, I'm like so frustrated, you know? So for me, I'm just like, okay, what action can I do? So it's all been like proactive versus reactive. Like, I'm just trying to do so many things, but I'm kind of burning out. I'm not going to lie.
It's hard. It's very, very hard. And, you know, it goes back to what we were talking about last year, which is you have to grant yourself recovery and refueling. And that's emotional and mental as much as physical. And it is hard when you can hear the seconds ticking and they echo loud. Yeah, I wish I had more to say than keep it up. You're doing a hell of a job, Mimi. You know,
Well,
but I do think it is important to acknowledge this is tangentially related. I was on a Discord with some friends, and a friend of mine, Richard Howe, who you know does lovely graphic design work, was saying, I think it was this past weekend, said like they had spent the whole weekend sleeping, like they had not realized, and they were saying they felt run down, they're not sick, it's also allergy season, and they'd been getting all this sleep. And another friend I know, another writer, had come in saying that they had basically taken a week off, sort of spring break, and they had not realized how burnt out they were until they sort of took this break. And, you know, they had had all these things they wanted to do at the time, and mostly what they did with the time was sleep and veg. And I somewhat selfishly found myself looking at that going, oh, that's an idea. I should figure out how to do, I don't have the first clue how I would go about taking a week off. But it did lead to a realization that that I do need to find a way at least to take a couple days somewhere. Like you can't run for 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, 4 years, where ostensibly you go, well, I get Friday and Saturday, or Saturday and Sunday off, when you really don't.
Yeah.
You know, there is, I think, a legitimate urgency to being able to carve out space and time for yourself that is a full disconnect. That, you know, and there are so many buzz phrases, but there is a merit to saying me time, you know, and being able to get the me time. And if you don't, you know, like, and I'm just repeating stuff that we talked about a year ago, it is worth reminding yourself. So this is me reminding you, you know, it's okay to take the time. You know, if the first rule of medicine is first do no harm, you know, the unwritten rule is you're no good to anybody if you're no good to yourself. And that is, I don't think there's that's just true, right? So there you go.
Yeah. No, you're right, of course. And it's like one of those things that I tell other people, and you're telling me, and like, you know, you and I know we don't do it.
Oh yeah, no, it's just great. It's just do what I say, not what I do. And in that we are like, oh, so many politicians.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can always, there is always fuel for the rage engine. I mean, there's always something you can stoke that boiler with. So that's not really the issue, right? The issue is not, do I have something to do? The issue is, how can I turn it off every so often?
Yeah.
And the need to turn it off as self-care, as self-preservation, and ultimately as self-care, and an act of self-care and self-preservation that allows you to help others. Right? Because the worst case scenario is that you burn yourself out and you quit. Right? You just can't do it anymore. And I mean, I think we've all been there.
Yeah. So. Yes. And I know you do speak from wise wisdom and experience.
Again, do what I say, not what I do. You know. So.
Well, it's interesting because this week I, for the first time ever, gave a graduation commencement speech for the graduates at the University of Central Florida, Asian American graduates. And it was like, oh my gosh, I've never given a graduation speech before. And so it was interesting. And I was like, what am I going to talk to them about? Boy, sorry guys, you had a really shitty year because you're basically like your senior year sucked. You were in a dorm room the whole time or stuck in a room and you didn't get to see anyone. Everything was online. Like, oh, well, sorry. But, so, I talked a lot about their, survival and thriving and how they still pressed on, but I had to do it. I went on this whole like empathy thing.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it is so lacking. Like you and I talk about empathy like every other episode, somehow every episode or something, but it's just, I'm watching, for example, the Chauvin trial, and I'm like, why is it that all of the people that are speaking and these witnesses are all taking it upon themselves to feel responsible for what's happened, and they have PTSD. They're the ones that can't sleep at night. They're the ones that feel like they could have done more. They did something wrong. And I'm like, and then the person that's actually guilty is like, no, I didn't do anything. I'm good. And yet all these other people have been so affected, and it's just, I'm appalled, and it's just left me very the last few days.
Yeah, I am finding it. I'm not watching anything. I've been doing, I've been reading about the trial, and I am trying to keep some distance between myself and that news, because as damning as the testimony has been, I am not. We have seen this before.
Yeah.
And here's there is a piece of me when things like this happen, and remove it from things like trials. Okay, ignore all the legal stuff. Let's frame it as something else. Let's frame it about an industry that I know something about. Let's frame it about comics, right? You enter into a conversation online, or you see somebody's tweet and it says, well, this has happened and this has happened and this has happened at DC, and the following books are being canceled. And we read the following quotes in the following interviews and so on. Like, this person said this at this site, and this person said this at this site, and this person said this on this podcast. And it is possible that every single one of those things is factually accurate, right? That nobody has been disingenuous, and that they're presenting the objective fact as they know it. But there is always so much stuff going on that we know nothing about.
Yeah.
And, one of the problems of the modern world is that we live in an era of such specialization, so that we look at, let's say, for instance, a comic, right? And an error has occurred in the comic, and everybody presumes, well, that error is on the wow, that was a misspeak, on the part of say the artist, right? But in truth, what it was a production error, right? It was that the wrong black was laid down or something like that. It's a specialized knowledge to know that the error there was not on the artist's part, though the artist may have laid the foundation for it, but that the thing that went wrong at a point down the chain that 99 out of 100 comics fans know nothing about and understand nothing about, but are clearly and shrilly posting on message boards and on Facebook and on Twitter with an authority they do not have as to whose fault this is and what went wrong. So I'm always very leery. And the other example I use is when we hear about intelligence reports, say, right, which is almost definitionally going to be presenting to the public a sliver of information that has been determined through means that are absolutely obfuscated and arcane to that same public. Because the CIA is not going to say, well, our agent, John Smith, who has been undercover for 8 years in the embassy in Uzbekistan, they're not going to say that, right? They can't say that.
Right.
So you look at a legal trial, and for those of us who are not even just not attorneys, but are not trial attorneys and are not criminal trial attorneys, right? There are things going on that we do not know the nuance and detail of. And, you know, my father, may he rest in peace, was an attorney, and he would tell me, if you go to the court looking for justice, you're not going to get it. But if you're lucky, you might get the truth. That's what a trial will do, is that it will seek out the truth. We all know what happened to George Floyd was murder. That there is no shining of that turd that makes it less than this man took this other man's life. To determine absolutely what was in this person's mind and heart at the time that they committed this crime is something that I'm not prepared to do. I can't do it. I have suspicions, but I can't speak with any real authority about it. So what has to happen now is the preponderance of evidence around it that is used to determine or try to find the truth of what happened. But finding that truth may not give us a just result.
Yeah.
And we know through vast experience that the African American community does not receive a just result. That's one of the things that we are fighting for. So I'm, this week I'm probably a little more pessimistic. Next week I might be a little more optimistic. I don't know.
I'm making the mistake of clicking on the little Twitter things that show the clips of the video, and I'm like, I don't need to hear this. Like you said, it's always better to just read a quick thing, and but it's like I can't stop. I can't stop when I see it, because I feel like they're putting their souls out there, and here it is. How much more do we need to hear or know, right? And it sounds like George Floyd is on trial sometimes when you hear the defense, like, well, it's not about him, right? And so, but it's just it's just frustrating.
But that's the standard cross, right? That's going to be how they're going to cross-examine him. My advice is delete Twitter. I know. No. Look, I recognize you use it in a different way, and that you get some merit out of it. Delete it for 24 hours.
Oh, okay, that I can do. But I will say,
just get it gone for long enough that you can catch your breath.
Yes.
I'm not saying abandon it. I understand. I understand the trap of social media.
Right. But I will say the one good thing I learned was that, are you going to a convention in October?
Well, the hope is that I will be doing the Lakes show up in, I believe it's in Lancashire, in the UK.
See, I learned one good thing on Twitter.
Right. Well, but you see, you could have learned that on our Discord too. So
yes. That's hard though. There's so many things I have to read. All of like.
No, you don't. You don't have to read them all. You just look at the ones that are interesting to you. So, There's nobody's going to test you. I'm sorry, Mimi. That was covered last week in another thread.
Oh my gosh. It's like, I feel like if I don't go on in a day, then I miss it. Right. And then but with the stupid Twitter, I only follow like a certain number of people. I don't see everything, so most everything's muted, but like Lazarus, of course, that shows up on my thing. It's the mistake of clicking news. That's the mistake of going off that page. Right. So I just stay on my page. I only see Lazarus and like, Trevor Noah or whatever.
Yeah, there you go. Discord, it is scratching that social media itch, and
everyone's so lovely.
Well, yeah, because we can police the hell out of the community. No, that's precisely it. If you want to show up and be a schmuck, you're not going to be there long. And that is right there, the difference between Facebook and Twitter and everything, right? Yeah, which is you don't have the right to say whatever the hell you want in our Discord.
Yes.
Because it's ours.
Yes.
You don't have freedom of speech there. You came into our virtual house.
Yes.
There are things you don't get to say there.
Yeah, I love it. I love in the beginning too. There's just all the rules. It's super clear.
Very clear.
And I was all like, okay, I'm allowed to post I was like, who do I ask? Me, I'm a big rule follower. So yeah. I love that. I think that's what I like.
The world is not kind for those of us who actually believe that you're supposed, when you stand in line, you don't cut. We just stew silently and wonder at people who think that for some reason rules don't apply to them.
Yes. When Oscar and I swear, like for our conversations, we don't actually use our own words. We're constantly speaking in quotes of movies or other things. And we were on a cruise or something, and we were on an island, and there was a really long line to get back to the ferry or something in the hot sun. Mm-hmm. And this couple, European come by, and she's like, David, we do not wait in line. And the whole line was like, what? What do you mean you don't wait in line? Like they went all the way to the front. And so Oscar and I always just go, when we see people that do that, David, we do not wait in line.
Yeah. It's like, wow, okay. It's nice to be special.
Right. Yeah. So obviously I'm that person though that goes over and explains to them why they need to wait in line and go to the back of the line. Well, I'm that person.
It's again, empathy.
Yeah. See all these people.
Yeah. We're all waiting too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Do you have a medical condition? Or is something burning, bleeding, then otherwise get your ass in the line.
Exactly.
Why is this a challenge? Right? Now serving number 17 means serving number 17.
It's like the Beetlejuice thing. Like I wish I had the little sprinkle stuff to shrink the guy's head that he switched the numbers.
Yeah, that's enough. So,
oh my gosh, I don't know why I'm going to share this, but I just thought about it because I took my sister to get her vaccine first because she has the medical condition, and we're in the lines and we're outside because, of course, this was the FEMA site, so it was outdoors. We were all spread out, which was fine. But I'm watching the porta potties, which is there's nothing else to watch, obviously, and I was horrified because 3 out of 3 people came out of there and did not wash their hands and then just proceeded to get back into the line. And I'm saying, do you see why there's a pandemic? Do you see
exactly.
hello, and I'm like, hey, go wash your hands.
I'll give you, this is tangentially related, but
we're constantly on tangents.
Well, this is really tangentially related, but hopefully will provide some mirth for the audience here. I have an Apple Watch, and Apple 2 updates ago decided that their effort to fight the pandemic, instead of, for instance, donating lots and lots of money, would be to update various things in the iOS to enable contact tracking, right? You can put on contact tracing, and on the watch they now give you a timer for washing your hands, right? So apparently your watch will detect It's supposed to detect when you're washing your hands, and it'll give you a countdown for 20 seconds.
Yeah.
But it does not work.
Oh, I was like, do you get a little jingle or something?
No, I mean, I think you can customize it so it'll get it does this little sort of bubbly countdown, and then it's like, hey, good job when you do it. But I will, I'll literally be doing nothing, and my watch will go ding and say, "Did you just wash your hands?" I'm like, "No, no, I didn't. I'm typing, right?" And then, of course, I will be washing my hands, and the watch won't notice. The watch will be like, I'm like, what do I get? I don't know what hand washing technique this thing is calibrated for. Like, does it think it's surgical? Like, I'm going down to the elbows? Right. I mean, I'm pretty good when I wash my hands. I do front and back, and I do up past the wrists. And I actually am one of those people who this was convention training. This wasn't pandemic.
Right.
It was convention training. I would actually do my fingernails still,
yes.
Right? Because, paranoia.
Yeah. Well,
I had a really good run back when I was doing conventions where I had not gotten con crud for years. Like, for years. The last time I got really, really sick, I think, was like 2017, 2018. I was on. It was during the Wonder Woman run, and it had just started, and it was New York Comic Con. And I came down with something on the Saturday that literally, or on the Friday, that literally started that morning, and by that afternoon, I had to leave the show and spent the next 2 days just in bed in the hotel room.
Ugh.
And it was awful. But like, my window around that had been really good, and I put it down to, near religious devotion to hand sanitizer and excessive hand washing it at every opportunity.
Yes.
So when my watch is telling me, "Oh, well, you didn't," or says, "Well, you only scrubbed for 10 seconds," and I'm like, "Look, I know what a minute looks like, and you're a timepiece. You should too." So yes, it is. I went on my walk today, and you can see the vaccine unclenching that's going on.
Yes.
The number of people seeing without masks has gone up. But in the main, they are still going. When I am walking, I have my mask with me, but for the most part, I do not walk with it on. I'll be walking with my cup of coffee, so I won't have the mask down.
Right.
But when I see anybody coming, right? If I cannot get in their way, and by their way, I mean step into the street and give them at least 15 feet, right? Then the mask is on. But some of the people I saw today, they were just, walking the baby in the, Porsche of strollers with 3 other people. And I get it, you're a pod.
Right.
You're also a pod that's taking up all of the space. I mean, it's like literally I now have to go into traffic to get out of your way. Look, I am very glad that we are getting the vaccines. I'm sure it will be this coming Tuesday for me.
Oh, yeah.
I get my first dose of Pfizer, I think.
Yeah.
So, I am there with bells on.
Yes, ready. No, you're right. And as you know, I'm in Florida, so it's always been a bit of a hit and miss. I mean, I'm in Central Florida because we're in a bubble, right? We're like the Austin of, of Texas. For the most part, everyone around me is good. As soon as I start to leave the metro area, then you start seeing the changes. But it's so true because I know several people that's like, oh, my sister or in-law or so-and-so and so-and-so, they got the vaccine and then they got COVID 5 days later. because they think, oh, I just got the vaccine, I'm good. They didn't give it their 2 weeks, or they didn't wait till their second one and then 2 weeks after the first one, the dose. And so people are getting a false sense of, security. And it's scary because now the British variant is here and it's really bad for kids. It's really spreads fast. And I think, pretty much at my school, over half my staff, the majority, are fully vaccinated. We all still wear masks. We all still do the same exact protocol as we did when we were not vaccinated, because we don't know who's there. We have kids. They're obviously not vaccinated. And it's like, yes, there are certain things you can do. I just had this past week a doctor on my podcast talking about vaccine safety and hesitancy. And he's like, it's not a free for all. Like, this means like go forth and run out into the public. It's the CDC, you and one other household, if they're not masked, that's pretty limited still.
That's very, well, it's the difference between it's great that your car has an airbag, still wear the goddamn seatbelt.
Exactly.
You don't sit there and go, well, I've got the airbag, I don't need the seatbelt. Or I've got the seatbelt, I don't need an airbag. You don't put on the bulletproof vest and then go, and now I will stand in front of somebody shooting me.
Yes, exactly.
You put on the bulletproof vest so that if somebody happens to shoot at you, you have an extra layer of protection. Right. But you don't go seeking it.
Yeah, this is like a PSA. I just need to cut this and be like, hey, everyone, listen to Greg Rucka rant on this whole thing. Like, don't be an idiot.
I don't think this is a rant.
No, this is not a rant, but
there was very little anger in that.
No, yeah, that's true. But I meant, I liked I like the PSA part of it. I think it's good. People need to hear it. It's true, because it's such a false sense of like, oh, I'm vaccinated now, I'm good to go. And yes, there's a lot of protection, but also wait until you're actually fully vaccinated.
I totally get it. I really do get it. It's been over a year, and oh God, I would love to be able to, quote unquote, go back to normal.
Yeah.
But, the medical stuff that's continuing to come out about the effects of COVID, and I was thinking about this as I was walking today. So we're never going back. All right. There are going to be additional vaccines developed over the next several years. Maybe at some point in the next 5 or 10 years, there will be the vaccine that is going to be
like the measles.
Yeah, it will be absolutely 100% effective, and it will be an immunization that everybody will need, and we will be able to eradicate because you don't eradicate the disease in this sense, but we will begin to eradicate our vulnerability to its variants, right? Matthew Clark, who's one of my dearest friends and, is also a wonderful artist and is also severely immunocompromised. Has on more than one occasion said, this close to the finish line, you don't want to stumble. And I think that is a very apt way to look at it. So yes, I am supposed to do a show in England in October. A lot of things can happen between now and then. And one of those is Americans may not be allowed to travel. Like I've mentioned this before. Yeah, I go and I'll go down to the pharmacy at the hospital to pick up, a prescription for Jen or for Dashiell or whatever. And you walk in and they go, okay, we got to screen you. And then they go down the list of questions and they say, have you traveled outside of the United States in the last 2 weeks? And every single time I'm like, how? Just how? Explain to me, even if I wanted to, how would I have been able to do that? So yeah, I hope to go. I'm looking forward to going. I like going to England. Though there's some crazy, weird political stuff fomenting there, like Brexit too. Revenge of UKIP seems to be stepping up now. But we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll see.
But
So.
I was still excited to see that.
Yeah, it was a little flicker of remember how it used to be.
Right,
So.
right. Well, but I mean, and you do conventions, but you had kind of stepped back from going like crazy to
I really
conventions. Like
don't anymore.
you had, yeah. So that's why I was like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm more inclined to do international shows at this point. For a variety of reasons.
Yes, yes.
And I think we've discussed about this, but mostly because domestic shows treat you like cattle.
Yes. Yep.
And I'm too old. I just won't do it. I have no patience for it anymore.
Yeah.
I like being able to meet people. I like being able to sign things for people and to talk to them. I think the personal interaction is so important. In a way that the online interaction has deadened. Because even online, it's weird. The online sphere allows people to say whatever they want. But normally the whatever they want tends to be it tends to be hostile, right? Like the freedom, this isn't specifically about things directed at me at all. This is just sort of an observation. It seems like that freedom allows people to say horrible things, right? But people who want to say personal things tend, they don't want to do it in a public forum, but they will do it when they're standing opposite you at a table. They will put down, a book and they will feel empowered enough or comfortable enough or that the environment, even being on a convention floor, is intimate enough that they can allow for some vulnerability on themselves. And there have been so many, 20 years plus now of doing this, men and women who have come to me at shows and been in tears, not because they're meeting me, but because they are able to talk to me about the thing they read that mattered to them at a moment when they needed it. And you cannot get that interaction online.
No, of course not. Yeah, that ability to share a piece of yourself, and it is also about meeting you. As someone who almost jumped over a train to get to you.
Right, but
we'll say. But you're right. It is because you found that connectivity though. And it's so meaningful to share it with the creator. Like it is such a big deal. It's usually their best part of the whole convention.
Yeah, and I think I think it's important for the creator side of it too, because it closes the circle. It's very easy to think, I'm working in a vacuum, and obviously I'm not. I don't know who it was who mentioned to me a little while ago the sheer amount of Joe and Nikki fanfic that is out there. Like Joe and Nikki from the old guard.
Oh man.
clearly is speaking to people who did not feel they had been given a voice.
Yeah. Representation has been huge for those characters. I've felt that outreach just in asking people what they want to ask you about. A huge portion has been the Joe and Nikki love.
And I mean, I'm really leery of, but believe it or not, I try to be humble in the face of this. I think I was talking to Alejandro about it. It must have been Alejandro. But we're talking about the fact that for us, it was never a big deal, right? That was never a discussion. in the process of the old guard. It was never a discussion editorially. It was never a discussion with Leo. It's just who these characters were. This is the given of the characters. We talked more about Booker, really, and trying to make sure we had, understanding of Booker than we ever did about the portrayal of Joe and Nikki. We all got Joe and Nikki, and we all never thought that was, if it was going to be an issue, it was not our problem, right? If there was an issue with those characters, it was clearly going to be somebody else's problem. And if it was their problem, too bad for them.
You typically, all your writing is typically that way. You just kind of attack it and do what you feel.
It's interesting.
The story.
It's interesting you say that, because I'm working on something right now. And I've got about 4 pages left of this script, and I have been not finishing it now for about a week. And that's okay, because the artist still is, he's fed, he's got stuff to work on. But I have been hesitant, and I know the hesitation on closing out the story, because I know what needs to happen in the broad sense. The specific of how it happens, I don't have precisely, but that's also because the specific doesn't really matter all that much. But there is a piece of me that is struggling with it, because it is a really thorny, we're talking about some thorny things, and it's kind of personal in a way. And so I am kind of looking at this one being like, maybe I'll write this other thing where it's just making jokes and having fun. And I'm working on another project with Eric Troutman is co-writing it. And the thing we keep saying to each other is, if this isn't fun, we're not doing it right. Right? Like, this is supposed to be pulpy, over the top. We talk a lot about reading I think it was Epic magazine and heavy metal when we were like 12 and 13, when you were at that age where it was, you were getting away with something, where you're like, oh, breasts, or whatnot. But wanting that sense of a little transgressive, it's a little dirty.
Yeah.
It's not quite dirty, but it's a little dirty, and it's over the top, and that's sort of the feel that we want for it.
Okay.
And every time we sit there and we go, I don't know, the plot has to work and the story has to work and all that. It's the moment that you sit there and you go like, ooh, this scene isn't actually entertaining. And a lot of what happened with the old guard, and admitting that the old guard was this long gestation process before I actually started writing it. But a lot of what was going on with the old guard was, I'm just writing to have fun here. It's just going to be Leo and me, and we're going to have, it's a Looney Tunes cartoon. I can blow them up. I can drop them out of airplanes. I can turn them. I can make them exactly
fall on their head.
They could literally Wile E. Coyote do the accordion walk, and I was going to be fine because they weren't going to die. And always trying to remember, at least through that first story, that level of glee, which isn't there as much in the second story, because the second story is much more somber. It's dealing with guilt, and you can't really when you're talking about I should say I was not comfortable trying to make jokes in that sphere.
Right.
I'm sure there are people who could. I'm not that good, so yeah.
Well, I don't know about that, but man, you're like teasing me with all these, oh, I'm writing this thing, I'm almost done with this thing, and just string us along, Greg.
We'll know in a little bit. There's a lot of stuff cooking right now.
Yeah.
There's Hollywood rumblings on this, that, and the other thing, and And there was this idea I had for a comic that Rick Burchett and I were going to do last year, and then sort of things happened in the world. Well, what happened was I wrote the first issue and I sent it to Matt Fraction to read. Mm-hmm. And Matt sent it back and said, "This is a fantastic issue 4." And I said, "You dick."
Yeah, so Fraction.
But he was, I mean, the thing was, he's right. I mean, he was 1,000% right. So I was like, "Oh, I hate you so much."
I love that I know him well enough to know this and like get this. It's so great.
I mean, well, and that's the genius. That's part of the genius that is Matt, is that he can look at something and then just literally put his finger right on the thing.
Yeah.
And it literally was, "This is a great issue 4," and I'm like, "I hate you."
But issue 4 is done now. So
yeah, great. All I got to do is write issues 1 through 3. So I had to do a rethink, and I had this idea for issue 1, and then we had all this violence in Portland last summer.
Yeah,
and it made it. I couldn't write it. Mm-hmm. I couldn't write it, and I finally got into a place where, okay, I think I have a take, and I can do it. So, and then Rick got COVID and was really, really sick. I mean, was really sick. He was going to do one of the old guard anthology stories. He was going to do Eric Troutman's story. And the way I found out he was sick was that Eric reached out to me and said, "Rick is not answering any of my emails, any of my calls." And I guess then came and I tried reaching out. I couldn't get him. And then said, he posted on Facebook, but the whole family had been down with COVID and everybody's fine, but he's still bedridden. And for Rick, it was a really long way back. So we had to, for scheduling reasons, Mike Henderson came in to draw Troutman's story. Mm-hmm. But then I was like, well, I want Rick to have something waiting for him when he's ready. So let's go back to this idea. It's time for me to get off my ass and actually figure out a way to do it. And that started moving forward. And then this thing that Eric and I are doing together has been in gestation for 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, it's been coming for a long, long time, and we've been trying to find the right artist to pair it with and figure out our take on it. And we finally got a take. And again, this is one of those things where it's like, well, if 8 people read it, fine, but we're going to have fun with it. Mm-hmm. And I guess that brings us all the way around to what we were talking about at the beginning, which is maybe that is in its own way a little bit of self-care,
just doing something that you enjoy.
Yeah. And
there's no pressure.
The pressure is only the pressure we put on each other.
Right. But it's different than what is now anything to do with the old guard pressure. Yeah. Whereas when you first wrote the old guard, you're like, yeah, you just do what you want. And now, having been a huge success, shame on you, the pressure is different.
Well, I mean, a lot of the discussions around doing a second movie have been, what are the obligations to your audience? Mm-hmm. Like, what do we owe them? What has to be there? What do they have to see? And then what do they expect to see? And what can we get away with not seeing? I actually feel that, and it's odd because Hollywood executives argue that, you need the mythology, the reasoning. We have to understand more. And there's a piece of me that's like, I would think 90-95% of our audience could care less why they're immortal. I honestly would be very surprised if, it was more than, say, 5 or 10% of the audience that actually was really concerned. Mm-hmm. That's not to say the other 90% would be upset if there was an answer.
Yeah, but not.
But they would be pretty pissed off if it turned out that the answer was, say, midichlorians. Like, if you're going to answer that, it's got to be a solid answer, right? It's going to have to be good. But in the main, I would argue that what the audience wants is they want to see the characters they love
Joe and Nikki.
Again, well, it's not we're not confining solely to them.
Yes.
But they want to see the characters that they love or like or are fond of doing things that are fun and cool, and give them more about who those people are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Like, I would argue that flashbacks to Joe and Nikki meeting are far more important in a potential second film than an explanation as to how it was they became immortal and why. Right?
Yeah,
the audience is going to eat more popcorn when they get to see them meet for the first time.
Definitely. I'm thinking about it right now.
Yeah. And the same thing goes for Booker or for Andy.
Yeah, the relationships and why they had the relationships, why it was a big deal when Booker, had to be exiled and
right. And I would think people want to know, okay, so what's happening with Niall? How is she fitting in? What is she turning into? Who is she becoming? What the hell's going on with Andy and the fact that she's not immortal anymore?
I know.
So answering those questions, I think, like I said, there's an obligation, and trying to honor that obligation. And then also trying to discern the different audiences, right? Like, well, should there be the second film? We are so hypothetical. We are in such far away territory to even talk about this. There are going to be some interesting conversations to have when all is said and done. Yeah. I look forward to us being able to take those questions and talk. So
yeah, me too. I'm glad we even got to talk a little bit about it. So, I mean, even just picking your brain is great. And I agree with you, though. I think you're an excellent storyteller, and you're also someone who likes to watch stories. And so that this would be more interesting, and this is what people probably want. And you're very in touch with your audience.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's just because I am my audience. I don't like fan service, and I think fan service is one, condescending, and two, very dangerous. I mean, I think that Rise of Skywalker, for instance, is an absolute train wreck of a movie because it's only fan service. There is not one moment that's honest or earned in it outside of the Ben Han beat. Everything else in that movie is just a patent lie. It's just a lie. It's not true. And but the example I use when talking to people most right now is I love the John Wick movies 1 and 2. Me too. I thought 1 was, and again, you can view it as exactly just what they put in front of you. Or you can look at it as this is a story about a guy who actually has his grief stolen from him. His ability to grieve is taken. And I think the first film's a terrific film. I think the second film's brilliant. I really love the second film. And I think the third film is a car crash. Because I think
it's just the action stuff.
Well, it's not. I mean, that's part of it, right? Is we have to answer how do we make it more and more. But the other thing is I really believe they misunderstood what people were reacting to in the mythology. And the movie gives you too much of the mythology. You don't need 50% of the mythology that they dump on you. And this insistence on how, I never once asked, gosh, I wonder how John became John. But you want to answer that, that's fine. Then that's all I need.
Yeah.
Right? They overloaded the mythology, and the movie as a result collapses under it. There is no, they moved away from the truth of the story, right? And the truth of the story is, here's a guy, he had changed, he goes back because this is stolen from him. The second story is, and because he has gone back, he now finds himself trapped in it. I feel very firmly that the John Wick 3 movie that would have the opening 15 minutes, keep them right up until he tells the cab driver, do you know where the Continental is? You take the dog there. At which point you should move out at 6 o'clock and just stand in the middle of the street ready to die. Because what does he have to live for? Right? That's the character story. And instead what they do in 3 is they have to graft on a reason for him to keep going. And it's kind of a weak reason, which is if I die, I won't be able to remember her anymore. That's a zero sum, right? That doesn't follow. You're right. If you're dead, you won't be able to remember her anymore. But if you're dead, you're not going to remember anybody, John. I mean, you will not be lying there. Yeah, you're not going to be lying there going, gosh, I really miss Helen.
Yeah.
Pity I'm dead.
I remember everyone but Helen.
But Helen, exactly. It is that is, and so you lose the truth of the character.
I see.
And because you lose the truth of the character, all you're left with is all this mythology. And it's like, I don't think the audience was asking for that much. Mm-hmm. The audience would love to see more of the Continental. The audience would be delighted to learn a little more about how the whole thing works.
Right.
The audience didn't need an hour of the movie about here's the guy who sits above the high table in the middle of the desert and this. You don't need that. And you're sitting there going like, how did we end up here? I thought shouldn't we be in New York shooting each other? I don't know.
I love talking about movies with you. It's so fascinating. Oscar and I quote you all the time. Anytime we scroll through Netflix and we see the Joker, we're like, racist and vile. And we use that for anything that we feel like falls into that character. Like we quote you all the time.
I have opinions. I feel that I am entitled to opinions because it's my job to create my own stuff.
Yeah.
And to do that, I should be aware of what other stuff is out there and where I feel, and again, where I feel it has gone wrong.
Yeah.
And where I feel responsibility lies. But we have talked before, and we will again, about the fact that Troutman and I are doing this thing that's going to be wee fun and so on. And it's a sci-fi fantasy thing, and it is lewd and crude. And I mean, there's profanity all over the place. But we are trying to remain aware of what we want to say and what we're putting out on the world. I'll give you another one. Compass is getting some press right now, right? And this is Dave Walker, Robert McKenzie, Justin Greenwood on art, Daniela Milla is coloring it, Simon Boland is lettering it, and it's gotten some coverage because there was a press release on it. It's sort of like an Indiana Jones. It's the main character, it's set in 12 Farmer, and the main character is sort of, she's this Muslim archaeologist explorer, right? And sort of her best frenemy is the daughter of this Chinese merchant household. And this is all set against the Mongols just rolling west, right? And one of the things that Robert and Dave did was they narrowed in on this moment of history that is not really covered well in the Western canon, right? We talk about the Mongols, and the best we get is Mulan, right? And it's, I was talking to Robert a few days ago, and he said, yeah, most people don't realize that, like, they got to Prague. Like, they sent a letter to Innocent the Seventh and said, you will submit to us. And the Pope wrote back saying, no, we won't, and got a right. Well, we're coming.
Yeah.
And if you think about Mongolia to Prague to Rome, that's within spitting distance.
Yes. We would all be Mongolian if they weren't alcoholics, is basically the whole thing with that. And the only reason I know that is because my husband has listened to Wrath of the Khans by his hardcore history like 6 times. And he just loves it so much. But yeah, it's insane how proficient they were at conquering.
Yep. They just kept coming.
Yes, and they would have just totally annihilated everything.
But one of the things that I like about Compass, and this will piss off all the people I'm more than happy to piss off, is that we have our 2 leads in this story are non-white women, and that's okay. It's all right to tell a story about not white guys, right? You can do something a little different. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Like, I know it keeps you up at night, Mimi. So I just wanted to reassure you, it's okay. The implication that people will not want to read it.
Yeah.
On the basis of that is fallacious, and the people who see that as a reason not to play it, or I'm sorry, not to read it, well, you probably weren't going to enjoy it anyway. I picked up a video game, and now I'm really all over the place, and I know we've been talking a while. I picked up a video game just off of Steam, because I was looking for a little thing to do in the evenings. And it's sort of this interactive novel thing. But in the Steam community, the first thing that came in, the game's been out a while, but somebody was like, I hear they use, quote, they pronouns. Is that true? And I'm looking at the forum responses, and it's like, yeah, because at the start, your gender is not decided, and what's the deal anyway? But if somebody goes, oh, I'm not going to play this game because they decided they wanted to be gender inclusive in their pronouns, it's like, then the problem's with you, dude. It's not with the game.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's no one's forcing you to play and read these things.
You got it. You don't have to buy it.
Yeah. Sitting you down and saying, this is, all those, I think in some ways we should be a little bit, that this is going to totally, we're not going in there, but we're not ever given the right history lessons and we're not giving any balance at all in our education. So Compass is due in the summer, I think. Yes.
June. I believe issue 1 is June. Yeah.
And is this going to be an ongoing? It's a short.
It's 5 issues. The first story is 5 issues, and then if all goes well, then maybe in another 6 to 12 months there'll be another 5-issue story. The nice thing is that it is sort of episodic. So it's this adventure takes place in this location, and then we can do another adventure. So, or I should say they, because my input is reading the scripts and saying write better. And
grading it
kind of saying this is look at this, or this won't work on the page, or you need to figure this out. But my input is
that's issue 4.
Yeah, I'm I'll give it a fraction next time and be like, can you let me know what you think. Seems fair.
That's the best. All right. Well, as always, it's a pleasure. We always have so much to talk about. Today I will be completely honest. It was, like I said, it was insane. I'm like, it's Greg. I don't need to sit down and write 800 questions out. We always just know what to do. We
have yet to have the long, awkward pause where we're just staring at each other. We seem okay.
Yeah, he listened last week. He goes, wow, you two have great podcast chemistry. There's no hiccups. It doesn't matter if you haven't spoken in a month. I'm like, I know, we're good. We're seasoned professionals,
That is absolutely what we are. We are pros.
All pro. All
right.
right. Well, love to everyone there, and
And
yay
to you
for
and
the
yours.
vaccine. I'm so
Yeah,
excited for you.
we give it 2 weeks. I should be coming up on dose 2 by then, so I will be able to. I will give
Let
you
me
my
know how you
report.
feel. Yes,
I will.
absolutely. All right. Well, as always, it is a pleasure.
It was great to see you. Take care.
Bye. That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening to Culture Chat and hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please subscribe and rate my podcast. Feel free to leave me suggestions or send an email to mimi@culturechatpodcast.com or follow me on social media at Sifu Mimi Chan on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook.